Yes, and chaps, welcome back to the tube. Today is an interesting video. We're going to be taking you through how to structure a push session. This is going to be a very, very well-rounded push session for the vast majority of you to do, because of course there's a lot of inter-person individualization that can go into this stuff, but this is a really good starting point. This is my personal push session that I've been running for a long time, at least in the general structure. I've made a couple of changes which I'll run you through today. First up, let me get cracking into, these are pretty bussing by the way, Starbucks triple shot espresso. Get the caffeination in before I train pull today. But anyway, to get straight into the session, first exercise that I go for is actually a machine ab crunch. And you might be thinking, what the hell? Why aren't you doing a push workout? Well, I am, but I like to put my cable ab crunch, my machine ab crunch, my ab work at the start of any of the sessions that I do. And the reason is it allows me to put a lot more effort into those movements. If I put it to the back end, a lot of the time I'll sort of just half-arse it. So I really want to put it at the start. And the second reason is I want to bring up my abs. They're one of my main focus points as I go through the next sort of 8, 12, 16 week training blocks. So putting it at the start, priority principle, is definitely going to help me out to make sure I'm training them as well as I can. Key pointers on here that I think I see a lot with the clients that I work with is when you're training your abs, you need to be making sure that you're flexing and extending at the spine as much as possible. So rather than just hinging at your hips, you really want to be curling over into a ball and then at top lifting your ribs nice and high, getting a big stretch across those abs to make sure you're actually training them as opposed to just training your hip flexors and chucking the weight around. Second movement that we go on to is the machine lateral raise. Now, realistically, you could do any lateral here. I personally really like this machine lateral that they've got in RT Fit. I also do a cable lateral raise towards the back end of the week. Now, the reason I'm choosing this instead of a dumbbell lateral is because it provides a little bit of load in that stretched position. On a dumbbell lateral, there's no load at the bottom. It's all just really, really heavy at the top. Hence, I've put this in instead of the dumbbells. A few key points here. You'll notice, number one, I'm actually a little bit too tall for this machine, so I've got to squat down a little bit. But number two, the one that you can actually take away, is my arm path is actually slightly in front of me. It's not directly out to the side, it's slightly in front. That's going to line up with my side delts that little bit better. The reason being is if you actually take a look at where your delts inserts onto your arm, it's going to be slightly in front. It's not right to the side. They sort of arc in this slightly downwards and forwards trajectory, so it makes sense to try to line that up whenever you're doing any sort of lateral movement. If you're trying to train the side delts, line it up with where your side delts are sitting. Some people's insertion point, by the way, will be a bit further back, so you can have some inter-person individualization there. Then on to the first press of the day. This is a new one for me that I used to run a long, long time ago, and I've not run it for a while, but it's probably one of my favorite presses that I've ever done. Reason being, number one, it's very, very personalizable. So you can move the bench back and forth. You can change the length of the D handles, of the daisy chains that I've put on there, and it's a very, very good movement. The only downsides are it is quite unstable, which is why I've put it as the first press when I'm the most fresh, so that I can actually stabilize that movement and still progress it as I would with any other pressing movement. Now, the key here when you're actually setting it up is you need the D handles, so the handles that you're grabbing onto, to be just slightly behind you so that you can still get a good stretch at the bottom, but so that you can still get into it easily. If they're too far back, you're going to be trying to walk forward with them. It's just going to be an absolute nightmare. If you've not got the daisy chains, I probably wouldn't do this movement. You can do it on a very narrow cable stack if you set up the bench quite close, but most of the time the cable stack isn't narrow enough. So probably wouldn't do this movement if you've not got the daisy chains. Go for something like a dumbbell press or anything that's like a flat press is going to do a similar job. This one though is very, very good. Second press of the day, we're moving on to something more stable now because we are fatigued. We've done the first press, me, and we're ready to crack on into this second press. So we need something a little bit more stable, and I want to hit the upper chest rather than sort of mostly biasing that mid to lower pec. So now we're on to a incline Smith machine press. 2 sets here, by the way. I did 2 sets on the cable press, and I did 3 sets on the ab crunch and the lateral raise. But for this Smith machine press, the absolute key is making sure you set up in the right direction. I'm trying to hit my upper pec here, so really we want to be pressing away from us, or no, I guess it's more so in towards us. As we press, we want to go further and further overhead. So you need to make sure that you're setting up on your Smith machine the right way around. Some Smith machines are perfectly vertical, some Smith machines are slightly leant back. I want you to have your head in the leant back position so that you're pressing up and back as you go through. It's going to feel a lot more natural, and you're going to be able to hit that upper pec that little bit more. You'll also notice I'm actually going for quite a tucked elbow grip here to align with those upper chest fibers a little bit more, which seems to be doing its job at the minute. So that's the pressing ticked off. We then go on to a machine cable fly, a pec deck, that's the name. Kind of just doing one set here because I've already done 2 sets on the other 2 presses, so we're into our 5th set of the day today. And because I'm dieting right now, I don't want to push the set super high. I've not got as much food to recover from. So how do we do it? What do we do on this one? Actually, I've got in, you'll see, a rest pause on this one. So I go all the way to failure. Then I take 5 deep breaths to recover from the previous set, and then go in again for another kind of half set after I've taken that 5 deep breaths, which usually takes around about 10 seconds of rest in between. The reason we're doing that is to try to get more what we call effective reps. They're basically the reps that are very close to failure and moving the weight really slow, because we know that they're the reps that stimulate the most what we call motor units. So they basically turn on the most of your muscle when you're going into any sort of set. The last reps are going to be the ones that are most effective. In particular, sort of the last 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And then maybe that last one is kind of arguable whether it's the most effective or not. But definitely the ones from sort of 5 to 1 rep in reserve are super key. So we're trying to get a few more of them by doing this rest pause technique. And then that's the chest work done. We're moving on to some arms. I do biceps and triceps on my push day because my pull day today is a lot longer. So I find doing my biceps on my push day helps me still put a lot of effort into actually doing them. So we've got a preacher curl, very, very stable movement, and then we have a overhead rope tricep extension. Again, I use the daisy chains here. I come sort of slightly in front of me rather than fully overhead, just because my shoulder mobility with this neck injury that I got, 2.5 years ago, is it makes me a lot weaker if I go fully overhead. So just in front of me is a good position to be in. If you've not got the daisy chains, just get 2 ropes and attach them together so that you can do the overhead tricep extension. And on the preacher curl, I mean, it's fairly self-explanatory. I'm just making sure that I'm aligned up with the axis of the machine and then curling from there, trying to get as many reps as I can. So that is pretty much the session. Give this session a go. I think it's a very, very good structure for anyone that's wanting to grow the chest, grow their arms, grow the delts. Of course, you can try some different exercises. You can use different amounts of sets per exercise. I did 3 sets of each of the arm exercises, by the way. But each person is going to need a different amount of sets. It's going to need a different selection of exercises if you don't get along with these. So, of course, if you want my help building that for you, the link is below to get involved with coaching. If not, no drama. Hopefully you enjoyed this video. Be sure to drop a like, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Ciao.